My lead source tonight is the senior senator from Colorado and the former presidential candidate, Democrat Michael Bennet. And Senator, it's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
You heard from Senator Schumer there. There was this long, lengthy lunch that Senate Democrats had today. And after my colleague Dana Bash reported that you, Senator Jon Tester, and Senator Sherrod Brown all said during that lunch that you don't think President Biden can win in 2024. Is that true?
Well, it's true that I said that. And I did say that behind closed doors. And you guys and others asked whether I had said it. And that is what I said. So I figured I should come here and say it publicly.
Why do you think he can't win in November?
I just think this race is on a trajectory that is very worrisome if you care about the future of this country. Joe Biden was 9 points up at this time. The last time he was running, Hillary Clinton was 5 points up. This is the first time in more than 20 years that a Republican president has been up in this part of the campaign. Donald Trump is on track, I think, to win this election and maybe win it by a landslide and take with him the Senate and the House. And so for me, this isn't a question about polling. It's not a question about politics. It's a moral question about the future of our country. And I think it's critically important for us to come to grips with what we face if together we put this country on the path of electing Donald Trump again.
So you're worried that your party is not just going to lose the White House if Joe Biden is at the top of the ticket, but that you're also going to lose both chambers of Congress?
I think that we could lose the whole thing. And it's staggering to me. I mean, Donald Trump's already been president. I thought he was the worst president that we've ever had. He already took away, the right for women to be able to make their own decisions around health care. He's already put 3 extreme Supreme Court justices on the court that wouldn't even survive a vet in the old days, but now are on the court because Donald Trump did it. These are all the things he's already done. And today, as we're sitting here, he's 3.5 points ahead in the polls. He was ahead before President Biden had that very unfortunate debate. And the lead has been growing. And we have 4 months to figure out how we're going to save the country from Donald Trump. And when I think about the kids that I used to work for in the Denver public schools, when I was their superintendent, most of whom are kids of color, most of whom are kids living in poverty in a country with incredibly low economic mobility, and where the poverty rates are growing and where the economic unfairness, I think, is producing Donald Trump in many ways.
So you're saying the stakes are really high here?
The stakes could not be higher. I believe that if we elect Donald Trump president again, my generation of Americans will be the first generation to leave less opportunity, not more, to the kids coming after us. That's not Joe Biden I'm blaming for that. That's not the senators I'm blaming for that. That is our generation of Americans, and we cannot let that happen. And we don't have to let it happen. We have to defeat the malignant figure that is Donald Trump, though, for us to be able to address the issues that we need to address.
But you don't think that Joe Biden can do that. So how can you not call on him to drop out of the race if you think he'll lose to Donald Trump?
Well, look, we're all here this week to have this discussion, to have this debate. I'm sure President Biden has a different view of his prospects in this election than I do, but we should be having a discussion about that. And the White House, in the time since that disastrous debate, I think has done nothing to really demonstrate that they have a plan to win this election, that they have a convincing plan to win in the battleground states where we have to win in order to win this election.
So
and they need to do that. They have to demonstrate that to the American people. And by the way, this is not about ignoring the American people's concerns. It's not about brushing off the American people's concerns. They have to address the American people's concerns. The people that I represent from Colorado have deep concerns about whether or not the president can win this race.
So it's not just donors or the media. You're saying it's your voters that have concerns.
These are my voters who said to me, I have been through this with my mom. I've been through this with my dad. I'm terrified about what it will mean if Donald Trump is elected president again in this country.
Do you think it could put Colorado in play?
I don't think it will put Colorado in play. And I also think Joe Biden has been a really good president. You saw him addressing NATO. He was in his wheelhouse today. I'm glad he gave a good speech today. I'm really proud of what he did to fund Ukraine, which is something that I've been fighting for as well. But I have not seen anything remotely approaching the kind of plan we need to see out of the White House that can demonstrate that he can actually beat Donald Trump, which is not going to be about the accomplishments that we all had, 3 and 4 years ago. It's going to be about what the future of this direction of this country is going to be.
So could you see yourself calling for President Biden? No Senate Democrat yet has called for him to get out of the race. Could you get to that place where you call for that?
I have no pleasure being here at all tonight, just saying what I said in the caucus, and I was glad to be here to be able to have this conversation with you. This is something for the president really to consider. And I believe those of us that are in these elected office have a moral obligation to the people that we represent and the future of our country, to the kids that I used to work for in the Denver public schools. We have a moral obligation to them to do everything we can to make sure their future is as bright as it could be. And if we just sit on our hands, if we say we're going to disregard what is plainly in front of us and plainly in front of the American people, and we end up electing Donald Trump again as president of the United States, that's going to be a huge tragedy beyond epic proportion, and it's something I can't live with.
Can I ask you, in that lunch today, you don't even have to say names, did anyone come out and say that they did believe Biden should drop out of the race?
I did not hear a person say that today in that meeting.
But he has made clear he's not getting out. And so you're just saying, you're resigned to the fact that if he stays in, Democrats, I mean, if you lose the Senate, that's power for the end of the decade. The Democrats would not be in control of the Senate, potentially.
Right. That would be an American tragedy. If
Supreme
we lose
Court
the Senate,
justices being
if we lose the House, if the Supreme Court, if Donald Trump, instead of having 3 appointments to the Supreme Court, has 5. And let me tell you something. People who think that this is just going to take care of itself because somehow when it's just a contrast between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, that somehow the American people are just going to come around in the end and save the country, from Donald Trump. I think we need to ask ourselves how we're in the position we're in today when he's already done all those horrible things with respect to a woman's right to choose, with respect to the Supreme Court as it is, with respect to the rule of law, with respect to his convictions, with respect to what the president was talking about today, his abandoning NATO,
Does the White House realize that? Does President Biden realize
Ukraine.
what you're saying is at stake here?
I think they do, but I think I can understand how hard it would be if I were Joe Biden to sit there and to say to myself, after all I've worked for, after all I've accomplished, after all the extraordinary public service I've given to the American people, which we should honor because it has been extraordinary. One of the greatest leaders, to be in that office, certainly in recent times, and who has accomplished so much. It would be so hard to acknowledge that after all of that, you're in the race of your lifetime with somebody you can't beat. I think that's probably really hard for him to acknowledge. I think it's really hard for the people that are working for him to acknowledge. I think they have a moral obligation to look themselves in the mirror and to be able to say, we know we can win this race, or we're sure that we're going to be able to win this race, because there's just too much at stake otherwise. And everything that we're looking at today in terms of the election itself is a fire alarm about the situation this country faces, the situation that our kids face, and America's role in the world, which is something President Biden cares so deeply about.
It sounds like you could get there to where you see yourself calling for him to get out of the race.
I believe the entire future of our country is at stake. People say, I hear them all, this is the most existential election. This is the most important election. This is the most important election. We are really behind. The president did not do a good job during the debate, and the week since has been a really tough week for the White House. And I think it's critically important that they address the concerns of the American people, not ignore them. And, those of us that have kids, I have 3 daughters of my own who know how critical, important this election is, we should keep them in mind. We should keep the kids that I used to work for in Denver Public Schools in mind. I'm not happy to be here. Most people are not happy, with the situation that we have. It's no one's first choice. But I think it's really important that Democrats have an open, honest debate about what the future is going to hold for our party.
It's remarkable to hear you say that you don't think, Senator, that President Biden can beat former President Trump and that the Democrats will lose everything. Senator Michael Bennet, thank you for being candid and for telling us what's actually happening behind closed doors in front of the cameras. I appreciate your candor.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Senator. I want to turn